All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation. Welcome everyone and call to order the regular Board of Supervisor meeting for Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 of the Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of litigation and real estate. I want to have one announcement. On Sunday, July 30th, from 1 to 4 p.m., the Police Department's Community Response Unit, or the CRU unit, is teaming up with a Wireless Zone for a backpack giveaway for local students. So it'll be Sunday, July 30th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Wireless Zone, and it'll be a backpack giveaway right in the complex where Whole Foods is. I want to talk to everyone about an incident that happened earlier this year. 3 teenagers showed extraordinary heroism, courage, and determination in an extremely difficult and hazardous situation. Sohan Kashav and Suri Shah kept calm when a portable vacuum cleaner caught fire in their home. These 3 teenagers knew exactly what to do and they jumped into action. To speak about these 3 exceptional teenagers is Matthew Trainer from the North Penn Volunteer Fire Company. And I want to apologize if I mentioned your names incorrectly. Mr. Trainer.
Is this gonna pick me up or do I have to hold it? Does that mean I can face the other way? Thank you. Sorry to have my back to you guys.
No worries.
Good evening. I am Chief Matthew J. Trainer of the North Penn Volunteer Fire Company, one of the 2 100% volunteer fire companies that serve Lower Gwinnett Township. I am here to talk about a fire we responded to that, thanks to some quick thinking and a lot of bravery, was able to be controlled very quickly. On May 6th of this year, we were dispatched to a home on Penn Oak Road here in Lower Gwinnett at 6:48 p.m. on a Saturday. Only 7 minutes later, there would be fire hose stretched to the front door by the crew responding on engine 62-1. And shortly after extinguishing the fire, they confronted inside. Before the arrival of the engine, myself and Deputy 62 were on location. This is usually the time at an incident where we are trying to figure out what is going on and trying to get a lot of questions answered through simply finding out on our own. This wasn't the case at this fire. We were met by the Shah children. We were informed that all 3 of them were home at the time of the smoke alarms activating. No one else was home and they were all outside. We were informed they simultaneously attempted to extinguish the fire with a fire extinguisher while calling 911. Which if they did not knock back the fire with the fire extinguisher or start the 911 process as quickly as they did, it would have been a different fire that we were arriving to. All of them then evacuated the home, did not go back in for anything, and awaited our arrival. Ask any of the firefighters here. We have been to fires where adults failed to act at the sounding of smoke alarm, where adults did not know where their fire extinguisher was or how to operate it, where adults waited for whatever reason to call 911, or where adults continued to go back inside a home on fire for this or that, or close. Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, you should be absolutely proud of your children. A fire in your home is one of the most terrifying experiences someone can go through, and your children did everything right. They saved your home and they saved each other. They're heroes. This evening, I am honored to present from North Penn Volunteer Fire Company and Lower Gwinnett Township citations of heroism to Suri, Kashav, and Sohan Shah that read, for extraordinary heroism, courage, and determination under extreme difficulty and in hazardous conditions, setting apart from expectation, in grateful recognition of your devotion to family and valuable contribution to the North Penn Volunteer Fire Company in Lower Gwinnett Township. Thank you for being heroes.
We gotta pose for a photo. Gotta pose for a photo.
Heroes have to take
Heroes
pictures.
take pictures.
Heroes take pictures.
Thank you so much to the Shaw family and to Matthew Trainer for that presentation. We are all very proud of you. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Paul Kenny.
There's going to be a little revolving door here for a minute. Thank God the people that dress better than me are leaving. Let the judge in. You're good. That's good. Good evening.
Evening.
Before I begin the reason we're here tonight, if I can, I want to speak about something that was one of the worst days in Lower Gwinnett Police Department's history. And I think it's important that we remember. 20 years ago today, Officer Richard Lawn, a 14-year member of our department, was involved in a traffic accident and he died 3 days later. Rich's memory is as strong as the day that accident happened. There's a couple of us in this room that will never forget it. Still hard to talk about. When you're a small police department, you depend on each other. And it was a terrible, terrible day. And I just wanted to remind everybody of that tonight, that I think it's ironic that it's been 20 years. And one of the things that has changed when we hire police officers, we involve civilians. Civilian township residents sit on our hiring board. And the past 2 times that we've hired, Rich Lawn's brother, Bobby, lives behind the township building here, and he has sat in on the interviews, and he's been incredible. I invited him tonight. He wasn't able to make it. But I really believe that a part of Rich is carried on through his brother, and his brother looks for, the Lawn family was a big family. There's one of 10. They know what it means to be a strong family. And I think his brother really gives that input during the hiring process. No one else does it the way we do it. And I think by the quality that we get, we're doing things right. So let's move on from that so I can keep talking. Next thing I want to do, I have one other quick item. I'd like to bring Judge Patty Zaffarano up to the front here. Couple law enforcement people that are in the room tonight know this judge. This is Judge Patty Zaffarano. You have to hold that for me. And she has been a lifelong friend of mine. She is not our judge in Lower Gwinnett, but she is. Good. When we need a judge to come and do a swearing in, never says no. Always looking forward to coming home to Lower Gwinnett. I'll say it that way. And this may be your last event. Judge Zaffarano will be retiring at the end of the year. So she served as a district judge in Ambler and Upper Dublin for 32 years. 36. All right. Well, your staff told me 32, so I'm going to smack them tomorrow. 36 years. What an incredible run you've had. Really thankful that you've been available for us. Patty swore me in as chief of police 11 years ago. So I was a dispatcher at Upper Dublin where her father worked. Yeah. So we have a long history. So I'll get on to it now with why we're here tonight. Well, there was an opening in the police department, met with our board, and they said, fill it. This board is incredible. And for everybody that's in the room tonight, I know there's a lot of law enforcement here, and we would never hear that too often. This board cares. This board wants the police. They're pro law enforcement, and they're always looking ahead, planning that we never have a shortage of officers. They want the best, they want the brightest, and that's what we're striving for every day. This process that this candidate tonight that is coming forward is very, very difficult. There's a written exam, there's a physical exam, there's a series of oral interviews. Then, we keep narrowing things down. Ryan, on background, Mr. and Mrs. Sell, he's incredible. You deserve a ton of credit. Everybody that knows him, likes him, everybody believes he will succeed and be a true professional and an asset to Lower Gwinnett Township. So we're thrilled to get him. Once he was given an offer of employment, then the other real hard work started. You have a polygraph test. As polygrapher, 100%. He has to go for a physical, drug test, psychological, eye exam, you name it. They have to go through it to get to this step tonight. So he's made it. With your approval, we'd like to hire Ryan Sell this evening.
You have our approval.
Okay. So if we can, I'd like to bring Ryan forward. We have our departmental Bible somewhere in the room. Oh, thank you. Ryan, do you want to have somebody from your family? Sure. And you need one more thing. You want me to hold this for him or for you?
I, Ryan Sell,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwinnett Township.
and the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold,
I will uphold,
obey,
obey,
and enforce the law
and enforce the law
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability,
handicap, or disability,
and that I will discharge the duties of officer
and that I will discharge the duties of officer
of Lower Gwinnett Township
of Lower Gwinnett Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. Noel.
So both Ryan's parents are law enforcement also. His father is a current police officer, retired from Pennsylvania State Police. And I'm not sure where you're at now, working now. Yes. And his mom is a police officer in Bridgeport. There's other law enforcement that came to support him tonight. I met his grandfather. Walt McGinnis is a retired Lansdale police officer. So he's carrying on a great tradition. I told them all that they should be jealous because he hit a home run coming to Lower Gwinnett. So we're thrilled. Once again, I really mean it. I can't thank this board enough. Mimi, Township Manager, your support and your guidance throughout leading this police department and helping me is just incredible. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can they all go outside now and take some
Yes, we
pictures?
can.
Okay.
You guys can.
All right. I'll meet you outside. Yeah, we'll take some.
Welcome, Ryan.
Welcome, Ryan.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice, like, the-
Well done, Chief.
These are the best.
Well done.
Great job.
Thanks, Chief.
This feels more like a normal meeting.
I'm coming out.
We agreed to.
So next on the agenda is public comment. Comments on anything on any items will be taken when those items are discussed by the board. This is comments, questions, concerns on items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments? None? Okay. Next up is resolution 2023-18. It's the revised calculation of the tapping fee for the sanitary sewer system. There was a memo included in our board packet from our township manager outlining the township tapping fee. Is someone present, Mimi, to discuss the tapping fee? I'm sorry. I couldn't see you either.
Good evening. I'm David Bush from Keystone Alliance Consulting. Yeah,
I was gonna say, David, if you could just hold the mic.
I'm David Bush from Keystone Alliance Consulting. I'm here. I had prepared the tapping fee calculation for the township.
You could just give us a brief overview and present.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Mimi prepared a memo that describes it fairly well, but tapping fees are charges as buy-in contributions from new customers connecting to the sewer system. Does not affect your current customers in the sewer system. Only those that are new and connecting to the system. The funds are typically used for capital projects, either here in the township or as contributions toward capital projects at the Ambler wastewater treatment plant. Okay. The tapping fees are calculated in a method as prescribed by Pennsylvania Act 57 of 2003, okay, whereby we calculate the charges as the maximum allowable charges. The township can adopt a fee at that level or below. Okay, but quite honestly, in most cases, it was recommended that you adopt the maximum fee because those costs or those fees collected are going to go to your capital fund and help defray the cost of capital projects in your system. We have gone through that process painstakingly, and I would like to acknowledge all of the assistance that we received from the township staff, which was exhaustive, as well as their engineer, gathering all the historical information since the last update. And that's usually the biggest struggle, is getting the information. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them. I don't want to, go on. But if you have specific issues or areas you'd like me to address, I'd be happy to.
I don't particularly. Are there any questions from anyone else on the board?
No, I just had a question, not so much for your math at all, but the figure of 9,000 in some, what were they called?
But $9,000 per EDU? Or is that?
Wasn't there a number of EDUs that you calculated the total number for Lower Gwinnett?
We did calculate as part of our calculation that the total number of EDUs, that is based upon your agreement with Ambler and the amount of flow that you are allowed. It depends on the capacity at the treatment facility and then what is considered an EDU, which also has been adjusted over time. That EDU number is a gallons per day per household. Okay, and it is calculated as 90 gallons per day per person per household. Okay, so we go
Okay.
back to the census data to get that figure. And that is what's actually referred to as the safe harbor number.
And so my question is, how are we at Lower Gwinnett at the maximum amount allowed EDUs for our contract with Ambler?
No, you are not. That is not answered in this calculation. It would be in your chapter 94 report, which is done
Okay.
annually. And I'm sure was done and completed in March, okay, of this year.
Okay. That's all. Thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. Happy to help.
But so in under state law, the process for calculating the tap-in fee is pretty prescribed. And you have to
Absolutely.
factor in all of that information that was included in the study that they did.
I probably had 400 questions, at which point Mimi and staff probably thought I had 1,000, but
It's entirely objective. There's nobody could question the math.
the math is laid out in our report. No
Right,
one
right,
can
right.
question that.
I read it, it gave me a headache.
Yeah, sorry. The cures insomnia too. There are, shall I say, different approaches by others, okay? But quite honestly, everybody who calculates the fee should come up with the exact same figure, okay? Again, we are very thorough in our process. We did the calculation in 2015 and also prior calculations for the township in years past. So
Thank you.
And so is 8 years the typical increment through which is 8 years the typical increment through which we should be recalculating more frequently, less frequently?
the actual calculation itself, it's really a matter of if it's going to go up and benefit the township, I would recommend adopting that. Now, how would you know that without doing the calculation? Again, there isn't that much because what happens is there's a couple of factors. The costs are trended to today's dollars. So if you go through a period of significant inflation, you might benefit from calculating your fee. As you pay down debt, you would see your fee go up as well. The township doesn't have any sewer debt, so that's not going to impact you. Okay. Again, if there's a significant capital outlay, you might want to update your fee. But I would recommend looking at all of the information and compiling that data maybe every 5 years, just in case, so that if you did it after 10 years, you'd only be going back 5 years and it's not that far back. Okay. Staff changes and sometimes memories aren't as good as they used to be. And the reality is it is a lot of information to gather.
I appreciate all the work that you and our staff did. Pull
My
this
pleasure.
report together for us. Are there any additional questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So what we have before us is resolution 2023-18. The recommendation from our staff was included in a memo that was included in our board packet and also online. It outlines basically the compilation of the report, as well as a recommendation for us to approve resolution 2023-18, revising the sewer tapping fee, $8,118 per EDU. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Um,
Motion does carry. Thank you so much, Mr. Bush. Next up is resolution 2023-19, the waiver of the land development for Gwinnett Mercy University courtyard improvements. We do have also a memo included in our board packet, was available as well online. This is following up from our last meeting in June, where we had the presentation from Gwinnett Mercy University. Are there any additional questions from the board? If you could just state your name, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I'm Annie Neiman here from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin here on behalf of Gwinnett Mercy University. Like you said, my colleague Kristen Pianzio presented last month, but I am here with our engineer, George Hartman, and Steve Freeman from the university if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, we're just here for you to vote.
Any additional questions from the board? No. Any questions from the public? No, is anyone online? Okay. So we have before us this request and the memo that is outlined as well as the resolution. I'm not going to read the entirety of the resolution. Essentially, a portion of the site is to be improved containing an existing 40,000 square foot dormitory and a parking lot. They're proposing to partially remove the parking lot to construct exterior courtyard improvements. The new parking will be added along the landscaping improvements and an underground stormwater basin that will be designed to accommodate the future Innovation Center project. Due to the relatively minor nature of the proposed work, the recommendation from our staff is that the Board of Supervisors approve resolution 2023-19, granting a waiver of land development to the GMU Courtyard Improvement Project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is the public hearing for conditional use application for a lot size reduction at 400 Houston Road. I'm going to turn it over to our solicitor.
Thank you. This is an application to consider a conditional use for property located at 400 Houston Road. It's the application of Callie Gould and Thane Gould. The applicants would like to create a new lot, so this will ultimately be the subject of a subdivision application. But for now, the applicants are looking for a conditional use to reduce the lot size for one of the lots. There is already an existing 3-story, 5-unit apartment building built in 1920 that has been used since 1950 and therefore is a legal non-conforming use. Code section 1296.06D states that reducing the lot size for a non-conforming use requires conditional use approval. Conditional use is essentially a permitted use, provided the applicant demonstrates compliance with all the objective criteria in the zoning code. This is not a hearing to consider a formal subdivision plan. That will come later in the process. The procedure will be that the applicant will present its case, and then anyone who might object to the application will have the opportunity to present their case, followed by public comment. Is there anybody at this time who wishes to be recognized as a party to the proceedings? A party would have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and present their own evidence. Anyone can present comment at the end of the application. Anyone online who wishes party status? No? Very good. So at this point, I'd like to introduce certain exhibits before we proceed. Exhibit T1 is the application dated May 3, 2023, and an accompanying cover letter, the applicant's counsel. Exhibit T2 is the topographical survey plan prepared by Charles E. Shoemaker, Inc., dated January 25, 2023, revised May 2, 2023. Exhibit T3, the conditional use plan prepared by Charles E. Shoemaker, dated May 2nd, 2023. Exhibit T4 is the conditional use notice of hearing. Exhibit T5 are the proofs of publication, evidencing publication in the Reporter on July 10 and July 17, 2023. Exhibit T6 is the Township Engineer Gilmore and Associates review letter dated June 15, 2023. Exhibit T7 is the Township Transportation Consultants review letter by McMahon A. Bowman Company, dated June 15, 2023. And Exhibit T8 are the minutes of the June 21, 2023 meeting of the Lower Gwinnett Township Planning Commission, which recommended approval subject to certain enumerated conditions. Is the applicant represented by counsel?
They are, again, Andy Neiman, Hamburg Rubin.
Feel free to proceed.
Wonderful. Let me hand out my exhibit book. collectively mark this as exhibit A. There are a number of tabs in there. Hey, like I said, Annie Neiman, Hamburg Rubin, here on behalf of the Goulds and Bruce Thompson, the owner of 400 Houston Road. We are in the C Residential District. A little bit of history on the property. As you can see from this picture, Bruce and his wife Mary own both parcels. They bought the property in 1971. They subdivided it in 1999. So you have that flag lot and then the rest of the parcel. The exhibit we have up shows what we want to have happen with the property. What we do want to have happen is we want to subdivide the parcel with the apartment building on it. That way, Callie and Thane can build a house and live next to Callie's parents to help them age in place. And I'll have Callie Gould talk to you about that in just a little bit. Currently on the property is a 3-story, 5-unit apartment building that was built in 1920, and it's been used as an apartment building since about 1950. As your solicitor said, since the zoning code was enacted after that, it is a legally non-conforming use, which would require a conditional use if we wanted to reduce that lot size. And that is all we're here for tonight. We'll be back again for land development, but tonight is really just about whether or not we'll be allowed to reduce that lot size. So I handed out an exhibit book that's got the deed to the property at tab 1, a tax map just showing the current organization of the property. We have the existing features plan, the conditional use plan at tab 4, an aerial photo exhibit at tab 5, which is the one that's on the screens right now, and I think does the best job of showing exactly what we want to do with the property. And then exhibit or tab 6 of my exhibit book is a collection of letters from neighbors in support of this application. I have with me tonight Callie Gould, the daughter of the property owner, and her husband Thane. And then I also have Gary Tilford from Charles E. Shoemaker with us to explain the nitty-gritty of the project. Callie, why don't you come on out? Let's get you sworn in.
You want me to do it? You want to? You can do it.
Caroline Thompson Gould. Yes.
Great. All right, let's try to put this in between us. Okay, so Callie, can you describe your relationship to the property owner and to the property?
I am the daughter of Mary and Bruce Thompson, who own the property, and they've been there for about 51 years. I grew up here, went to Wissahickon High School. My husband and I moved back about a year ago from Baltimore. We were there for about 25 years, and we just moved back to the area about a year ago.
So can you tell us why you moved back to the area?
We moved back to help my parents age in place. My dad has cancer, and I'm going to be the primary caregiver.
Okay, so, and that would explain why building this house is so important to not only you and your husband, but to your whole family, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see, we already mentioned. So tell me, have you spoken to any of your neighbors about this project?
Yes, we've made all the neighbors aware that this is something we'd like to do, and we have some support letters.
Okay. And even though you haven't gotten support letters from everyone, you've at least told everyone
Yes.
and nobody has had glaring opposition.
No.
Okay. Is there anything else you think that the board needs to know about your family or this project?
Just that, we're happy to be back in the area. I'm a nursery school teacher in Ambler. We're the same where I went to nursery school, so we're excited to be back here and, live in this community again.
Okay, Callie, I think that's all I have for you.
Okay.
Does anyone on the board have questions for Callie? Okay. Gary? This is Gary Tilford from Charles E. Shoemaker. Let's get you sworn in too.
I do.
Gary, can you give us your name and address for the record?
Name is Garrett, excuse me, Gary Tilford, Tilford. I'm with Charles E. Shoemaker Incorporated. The address is 110 Keystone Drive, Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania.
And how many years have you been employed there?
More than 40.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Originally went to school for engineering technology. After completing a Bachelor of Science in there, went to Drexel University in civil engineering. About completing Drexel's courses, I pursued surveying, became a professional land surveyor in the state of Pennsylvania.
And have you been qualified as an expert witness before any municipal bodies or courts of law in the past?
I have.
At this time, I would move to have Mr. Tilford admitted as an expert in the field of land surveying.
I would recommend that the board accept him as an expert in the field of land surveying.
Is there a motion?
To admit it as an expert in the field of land surveying.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary, tell us about this property. You're familiar with it, but just why don't you go through the project, please?
The property, property in question that contains a structure, originally probably a single family house, but has five apartment units in it, is 1.5 acres in size. Has frontage on North Spring Garden Street and Houston Road, known as 400 Houston Road is the address. The property besides the building, also supporting the apartments are 7 parking spaces on the property. There is a just general numbers to give you an idea. Lot coverage, about 14% of it is structures, the building and parking and driveways. About 49% of it is in lawn, and another 37% is in woodlands. And the woodlands mostly onto the east side. It's also a dry drainage channel runs through the east side of the property. There is a FEMA floodplain that's shown on the exhibit that's being presented right now, the blue dash line. And most of the woodlands are in that same area. I might just add that for what is being proposed, the woodlands and the floodplain are not in the disturbed area that would be necessary to build a single family house. The frontage of the streets are basically no sidewalk and no curb, but the streets are been established for a long time. The unique part of, I'm here to talk about, the parcel with the apartment on it, but since Mr. Thompson also owns a flag lot that was carved out previously, that's on the north side of the property, and kind of his home structure is kind of essentially in the middle of the north side of the property. That house and the 5-unit apartment building share a access drive from Houston Road. Comes to an area where the 7 parking spaces are for the home, for the apartment building, and some additional parking for the home. Also, I'd like to point out for the flag lot in the back has access through a stone driveway directly to North Spring Garden Street. And since this subdivision that created a flag lot back in, I think, around 1975-ish, the house was built later, but what we found in searching the title report, it's lacking most of what you normally call easements and grants of defined access, and possibly some other utilities. There was one easement created or shown on the 75 plan for sanitary sewer to allow the newer home on the flag lot access to the sewer in North Spring Garden Street. There's a stone driveway that leads from North Spring Garden Street to the rear side of the home. And in that general area where the stone driveway exists today is what is proposed for a driveway for the new dwelling, should the subdivision be approved. Is that too much?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
So you heard what I had to say about the history of the property. Did you agree with that, or would you add anything to that, to what I had to say?
No, I agree.
Okay. And you did a great job of explaining the property. Can you just confirm for the record that you have reviewed the township zoning code and subdivision and land development ordinance?
We have as mentioned, the code is in the C residential district, 10,000 square foot lots size, is the minimum.
And not to sound like a broken record, but can you describe just the project that we're proposing? Basically subdividing the property, building that house. Correct.
So the plan that's on the display shows a reconfiguration of the lots for the apartment building site. So it's currently on a site of 67,618 square feet. The subdivision is as proposed is parcel A, and the proposed square footage would be reduced to 25,672 square feet for that parcel. Then the creation of a new building parcel, we call parcel B, would contain 32,308 square feet. And while we're at it, the flag lot that is adjacent is undersized and non-conforming in many of the categories: building coverage, impervious cover, setbacks, and so forth. So just to bring things, make lots regular size, we're proposing to add land to that flag lot to help reduce some of the non-conforming conditions, so that we're proposing to add what is now a 9,184 square foot lot, almost doubling it to adding 9,639 square feet to that parcel.
So that parcel would become more conforming to the code than it is currently now.
That is the idea, and plus maybe more attractive in the future for the next homeowner of that property.
And one of the conditions to this conditional use we're asking for is that we cannot create any new nonconformities. Does our plan create any new nonconformities for the property as a whole?
It does not.
Okay. Will the proposed use cause any undue burden on municipal services such as fire, police, water, and sewer?
We're proposing, if approved, one single family dwelling. And that's the only impact it would have to the services.
How will stormwater be handled?
Stormwater for this lot, as any other building project in the township. The most likely resolution will be to conform with the code, an infiltration trench or bed. In the event that the infiltration itself isn't possible, might be a rain garden, but it's going to take one of those two forms.
Okay, and the new house will be served by public water and sewer, correct?
Correct.
Will the requested relief alter the essential character of the neighborhood in any way?
No, you can see the north is straight up on the plan. East, north, and west sides are single family residential. The properties to the south is a fairly large parking lot that appears to serve a number of commercial uses. And I think I saw someplace where there's a farmer's market there on weekends.
So, and then if we are allowed to reduce the lot size, will that substantially impair the use of the adjacent properties?
No,
Okay, and does the, if, so again, we're just here to talk about the conditional use about reducing the lot size, but this is just looking ahead. But will our proposed use provide for adequate access to a public road?
yes, we intend to, North Spring Garden Street is a state highway. We intend to apply for a permit from the state.
Okay. So do you think that this proposed use and the conditional use we're asking for in particular, the reduction of lot size, do you think that the property is appropriate for that use?
Yes, it's still much larger than the minimum lot size. And it's not reducing any of the zoning criteria. So all the criteria is either equal or still within the limit of the zoning code.
Okay. So looking ahead just a little bit, I know that when we were before the Planning Commission last month, we spoke with them a little bit about some of the anticipated waivers that we'll be requesting. Just for your, I don't know, future knowledge, in case you guys are interested, can we talk a little bit about the waivers we might need in the future?
Sure. Yeah. We had quite a discussion with the Planning Commission after the initial discussion of what potential waivers there are. Spring Garden Street, Houston Road, I mentioned don't have curb and sidewalk, so that's part of it. Spring Garden Street in the past has been approved as recently as 2006 subdivision, maintaining the existing legal right-of-way at 50 foot in width. It's classified for 60 foot, which would be another 5 feet from off the property. So we intend to ask for a waiver to allow to maintain it at 50 foot wide. And also a discussion of replacement trees. So as the future dwelling is laid out on the lot and with the driveway, there's 5 trees that would have to be removed. And those 5 trees amount to 85 caliper inches. So by your code would require, say, 28 3-inch trees or 32 2.5 inch. And the discussion led to the vegetation at the intersection of North Spring Garden Street and Houston Road on the curve. The curve itself today is a little bit blind and also related to getting a PennDOT permit for the driveway. There was discussion with the Planning Commission that if any vegetation is removed for that or to clear the sight line, that possibly the township would consider waiving additional tree replacements for that purpose.
So based on our conversation with the Planning Commission and our conversations after that, are you of the mind that we can probably clean up that corner that is so congested with trees right now, and we can probably fix some of those sight lines with our project?
Correct, yes.
So that we might be able to help you guys. Let me see. What else will we be able to tidy up with our proposed use?
With the proposed use, give you an idea that building coverage of the different parcels. Lot A is getting Lot A or parcel A is the apartment building parcel. The building coverage would change from 4.6% to 12%, where 25 is the maximum or maximum permitted. The rear lot, because that lot's getting larger, the building coverage would change from 24.2% to 11.8%. So that would, make that condition better. Same thing, similar with the impervious cover, just cover it. The apartment parcel A would change from 14.1% to 25.6% when 40% is the maximum in the district. Parcel C would have a significant decrease from 81% impervious to 41.6%.
Okay, Gary, I think that's all I have for you right now. In closing, I guess I would just say that this is a project that the Goulds and the Thompsons are very excited about. They have both expressed that they are happy to forgo any right they may have had to increase or expand this non-conforming use if they're granted this conditional use, which is a part of your code. And yeah, we're just hoping that the board looks favorably on this and allows us to reduce that lot size. In which case we'll be back before you for the land development process.
You moving admission of your exhibits?
I absolutely am. Thank you so much for the reminder, Mr. Stein.
We love to ask questions.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I know this will come up in land development, but since you raised it earlier, it seems appropriate to discuss it now. So I've reviewed these plans and I've seen them before, and my biggest concern is the vegetation and that curve around North Spring Garden and the driveway that you propose for North Spring Garden. I'm worried about people coming in and out of your driveway. Worried for you folks, and I'm worried for people driving down North Spring Garden. You can talk about the tree waiver stuff for removal of that vegetation, but to me, there's a couple of things that are important here. One is that if we come to an agreement that the vegetation will be removed, it has to be removed forever. You can't let it grow back. And my concern is you have a really private lot right now. It's not going to be that way when the vegetation gets removed, and you're going to be right across from Amble Yards. So I can see the desire to have the buffer. Makes total sense. I get that part. Y'all just have to understand where we're coming from. That turn can be dangerous with you coming out of that driveway. And I understand that there was some talk at the planning commission about putting the driveway on Houston, but that sort of doesn't work out for a variety of reasons. But to me, that's going to be the biggest issue. And are your clients willing to make that commitment on the vegetation?
We've discussed it, and yeah, I think that's something we can absolutely work out. I will note that that driveway is already being used and has been in use for a number of years. But we would absolutely want to fix the sightlines around there. We don't want to create an unsafe driveway. Gary, do you have anything to add on the driveway front?
No, I think that's it. I'm good.
Okay. But yes, we've spoken about cleaning up the vegetation, and I think it's something that we would be happy to help the township with. And I think that it's something that's needed. That's not a safe corner right there, right now.
Right. So I just want to make, because I would want this as a condition for the next step.
Yes.
Which is not just when the house is built, the vegetation is gone, but that it is constantly monitored, whether it's not, I shudder to even say these words, but whether that becomes the township's responsibility through some dedication, or that's the landowners. It just can't be for when it has to be permanent for you all, for whoever you wind up selling to at some point. Hope you live here forever, that would be awesome, but that has to run with the land. It can't just be an obligation for you all while you live there. That makes sense.
I think we can agree to that.
Thank you.
And so I just have a couple questions. I live very close to this, and I've been alive as a couple people have unfortunately met untimely deaths on this curve. It is a very dangerous curve. I guess my concern is kind of echoing what Mr. Chorsky said, but in addition, the driveway on Spring Garden kind of brings concern to me as well. I've never seen anybody come out that driveway on Spring Garden. I travel it like multiple times a day. But is it so is it impossible for it to be on Houston Road? Is that what you're indicating? Or is that a preference?
Gary, I'm going to let you address this. Thank you.
I'll try. Unless the only way I could see it happening would be adding the additional dwelling to the driveway that exists on Houston and coming, through probably both the apartment parcel plus the flag lot parcel somehow to come in and to the back of the property instead of off of Spring Garden. It'd be difficult, but it would probably entail additional some legal easements and rights of way that would be pretty complicated for future homeowners. It may work today because they're family, but when it's not family, it's wouldn't be desirable, would not be something that I would advocate.
And right now, you're, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly, because the exhibit indicates that that is a sewer line. And so you're saying that the current gravel driveway is going over the sewer line?
Yes, that is the lateral for the house on the flag lot that goes through there. So we would definitely need to make some alterations, probably for a new sewer lateral. Maybe the existing one goes with the new house and a new one for the house in the back. There's also a gas line that we are aware of that goes through the property. That would have to be some changes. So we mentioned there'll be a number of tidying up, things to tidy up in the way of easements and legal documents that would affect all three properties if it's subdivided.
So, and these are all things that we're happy to look into. We just wanted to come before the township first to see if we're going to be able to reduce the lot size to begin with. We didn't want to put too much more time and effort into crafting plans unless we knew we were going to be able to subdivide, or I shouldn't say subdivide because we'll be back for that, reduce that lot size.
Just as a clarification, so the dotted line, the yellow dotted line is the reduction in the lot size for that. I'm just trying to identify.
The dotted yellow line is the existing property line for the flag lot.
So
Okay.
if you look at tab 2, that's the tax map as it is right now. And I think that shows exactly that little flag lot and the rest of Bruce's property there.
Tab 2 is the tax map.
Yep.
So that little square
So that,
is connected versus that driveway is that little strip going.
yes,
out.
the flag pole there is the access for the rear house there, which is in Mary Thompson's name. And then it also gives access to that apartment building. And again, Bruce Thompson and Mary Thompson are married. So both of those parcels together are essentially owned by the same people. But they
That's
were,
what's confusing me.
I
So
know.
right now it's just where the dotted line is out to the street to Houston.
yes,
The entirety of the rest of it is part of where the apartments are.
yes.
And so that driveway, that gravel driveway doesn't connect to the apartments, it attaches to the other property.
It does. It goes all the way back to the back house.
So theoretically, there's two driveways attaching to that one parcel
Yes.
and no driveways directly attaching to the apartment.
It takes access off of that flag lot, but
Yeah.
you're right. No, that's something we were hoping to clean up too. With access easements and things like that.
So with the recommendation, there's going to be 3? Because it looks like 3.
There will be 3 parcels, yes.
There will be 3 parcels.
Yep.
3 separate parcels.
So on this one that's up here,
I
the
thought you were
dotted yellow,
Okay. I
yeah, the
thought you were
dotted yellow
combining the
shows
other
what it
two.
is now.
I gotcha.
3 parcels, 2 driveways?
That's what we're hoping for.
And there's 2, the apartment lot A and the current lot, there's 2 separate owners. They own it individually, no tenants by the entirety. Is that, am I right about that?
Yes, you are
2 separate
correct about
lots.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a financial decision that they
No, no,
made.
no, I don't need to know the
Yeah.
reason why. I just wanna make sure I have it
Yeah.
straight.
But that's why I wanted to point out too, that Mary, who owns that little weird flag lot, and Bruce, who owns I guess, you could call it, they're married.
Gotcha.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly too. So okay. Are there any additional questions from the board?
Yeah, on here. So, I don't remember seeing a driveway out on Spring Garden from that property.
Well, it's just a gravel.
It's just a gravel. And is it used now?
It is. Bruce does use it. So he's the one in the rear on the flag lot. That's where he and Mary both live. They use that gravel drive because they have a garage on that side of the property, or on the house there, I should say. So they just zip right in off of
There's a
Spring
curb
Garden.
cut, or it's just sort of flat?
There's no curb. I don't think there's curb. Is there curb?
Right, there's no curb.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
okay, right.
it's stone towards the road all the way to the house. He has several garage doors on a lower level on the south side of his house that he accesses.
With the orientation of the new home, is it going to be towards Spring Garden? Is it going to be towards Brookside?
The orientation as shown, it's a conceptual house, is facing Spring Garden.
Okay, so the orientation of Mary's lot,
Yes.
is it facing Houston? Is it facing Brookside, or is it facing Spring Garden? I know that there's garages facing Spring Garden, but I'm just trying to, facing Houston. Okay.
And I just want to make sure I'm clear, and I'm sorry if this is being repetitive, but there's going to be 3 parcels,
Yes.
but the parcel with the apartment building and this sort of top right corner will be one parcel.
No.
No,
Right.
so right now we have 2 parcels. We've got the flag lot
Okay.
parcel where the Thompsons live, and then we have the apartment parcel.
Oh, okay.
We want to split that apartment parcel and
Okay.
then build a new
The
house.
dotted line was. that's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's
It was probably my fault. I probably could have been more clear to start.
This is.
Look at the
part-
tax
this is-
map.
This is what it is now. This is what they propose.
Got
So I have the same concern as the other supervisors about that driveway coming out on Spring Garden Street. I know we all recognize that that's a blind curve there. And so it seems like there's a bit of an embankment there also. So just removing the vegetation may not be sufficient to relieve the sight lines around there. Would that be something that PennDOT would be responsible for? To improve the sight lines around that curve?
Yeah, I think we would probably be responsible in order to get the highway occupancy permit. So that would be something that would probably come up in the land development process, in which we can address then. But I think that we're aware that we're gonna have to work on, if we want that driveway and that placement, which we do, we're gonna have to do some things to be able to make that agreeable to the township and PennDOT.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been any issue with the homeowner pulling out of that driveway right now or not, but I imagine people coming around the curve, coming from Houston toward Spring Garden, that's a blind driveway there. Just, is there enough reaction time built in after someone comes around that curve?
I hear you. And I think that's something that we can work out in the land development process by pinpointing which trees need to be removed and, what the sightlines need to look like.
To kind of piggyback on what Tessie's saying, it's not only just the blindness of Houston, but just the speed people travel on Penn Ambler Road. Because you can't really see that when you're coming down the hill, you can't see what's basically going to be before you momentarily.
Yeah,
And people travel pretty fast.
true. I guess I'll point out that if PennDOT doesn't give us that highway occupancy permit, then we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board a little
Yeah.
bit
Right.
and figure it out. And that's something that we can all be a part of,
Yeah.
figuring it out. Again, tonight is just about the conditional use
No, we
and, okay, sorry.
But I think we would be remiss, though, to not talk about some of the concerns that residents in that area have brought up to us consistently. And then since you kind of brought up the trees, we had to jump in.
So if PennDOT doesn't grant the occupancy permit, even if the vegetation is taken down, will that change the size or the complexion of the proposed 3 lots? I mean, will you have to do, I guess my question is, are you gonna be back before us and say, well, thank you for giving us the 3 lots, but we have to change it because of this? So I guess my question is, it's more just sort of musing. Is this the right order of things?
So this is the order that the township suggested to us. We had a meeting with Jamie and she suggested that we get the conditional use before we, try to get the land development approvals.
Okay, I defer to Jane. It all matters of.
No, I also.
But I
defer to
guess
Jamie.
you see what my concern is. right?
Absolutely.
So you'll go through this process, you'll spend whatever money you're gonna spend, and then have to come back and do it again. If PennDOT says, nope, we're not giving you, and you say, okay, well, again, it's all family, everything's fine about going over mom's property to get out, but what happens when somebody wants to sell? That's gonna be a tough sell for somebody. So again, just sort of musing out loud, I don't want you all to waste your time and money going through this process and only to be shut down by PennDOT and then have to come back by us. But I guess, it's which comes first, the chicken or the egg. You got to do something first. So I get it from that perspective.
That was kind of what I was going to say, but in a very more succinct way.
I liked your way of saying it.
Thank you. Not everybody does.
Are there any additional
I have a
questions?
question,
Go ahead.
actually. I just want to understand Gary's testimony, and that is a shared driveway is possible but not preferable. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, I think, an arrangement of a driveway that might crisscross both properties, get to the rear might be possible and still not affect your zoning as far as I mentioned the percentages of it, building coverage and impervious cover on the lots. There's room for new additional impervious if needed. So I think the possibility of physically doing it, making that connection it's just not, I think, looking down in the future with different owners and owners of the single family houses and owners of the apartment house, that it could create friction. So I wouldn't jump to that conclusion first.
Friction in what respect?
Just because we say all the time, just share driveways. There's unbelievable friction between neighbors when neighbors change. One's been there, it's been fine for 40 years, and then a new neighbor moves in with a shared driveway, and all of a sudden they're parking their car on the dividing line, and it just creates friction. So from the surveying point of view, I take calls probably every 2 months. I've got something like that, where people are trying to find out, what can I do?
Thank you.
I think there's any further questions. Questions from the public? Any questions from the public?
I do have just one last sort of point. I appreciate
There is
the planning commission suggesting that taking out trees along here might replace the need to replace the calipers. I'm not entirely in favor of that. If there's a way to replace the trees. I see the removal of the vegetation as a safety issue, not as an environmental issue necessarily, which is the reason we have that ordinance is to maintain our tree canopy in our environment. So that I see those as two separate issues. So if you could address that in your planning stages, I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
It does look like there's somebody online.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, just a question and to clarify. So the existing lot for the flag property, as you're referring to it, the dotted line is where you're proposing it is, but are you saying that currently it goes all the way back to the solid line?
Diane, before they
Sure.
answer, can you give your first and last name and your address?
Sure, Diane Clerkin, 424 Marion.
Could you say your last name again slowly? We're sorry, we have a court reporter.
No problem. Clerkin, Clerkin,
And your address?
424 Marion.
Thank you.
So we would be, the property above theirs would be kind of the buffer between this project and our backyard.
Okay,
So,
I'll let them answer.
So I'll answer that. You have it reversed. The dashed dotted line is where the property line is currently.
okay,
And the proposal is to add to the rear yard, to the right, that the parcel there behind the house, to the flag lot, to make the flag lot twice the size.
who
That is
currently
correct.
owns that area?
Bruce
That,
Thompson.
Okay, and the blue dotted line, is that the creek?
Yes.
that's the FEMA floodplain. The creek is a little bit further to the east, to the right side.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, is there any thought to developing that lot as another property down the road?
There's no thought at all with even the disturbance of that area.
So Gary, we would not ever be able to, based on the floodplain in the creek, correct?
The township has ordinances that regulate that area, and it's not developable for single-family housing.
So can you just answer to the right of this property, just looking at your aerial map to the right, I guess that's to the east. There are two relatively new properties that were built. How were
Yes.
they built? Because they're right by the creek too, and I understand there's possibly flooding issues there.
From what our records show, I think that subdivision was 2006. I'm not aware what the regulations were in 2006. So I can't answer that, but they are relatively new.
Okay, we're just concerned that if another dwelling was to go in there, there's issues already with flooding, with the creek and environmental issues. So I guess we'd like some kind of assurances that that additional area is not going to have another house put on it.
I guess I would point out that the two houses you're referencing are next to the creek and the floodplain, whereas on Bruce's property, it's right in the middle of it. So I don't think we could build a house there. But, and beyond that, the Goulds and the Thompson have no designs to build any other properties or any other houses on this property, I should say.
Can anyone on the board speak to what that kind of additional annexed property, if you will, could be used for?
I would defer to our engineer or to our zoning officer. If you want to talk about it, Jamie?
So, sorry. So you're talking about this where if you can see my cursor on the screen, this area here, is this what you're referring to?
She's talking, yeah, so she's
Above.
talking about above it and she's
What's
talking,
gonna be the addition to C?
yeah,
Yep, that, keep going down. Yep,
Here?
I think so.
This is just, I think what they're presenting here is that they're just adding additional land to this property just to reduce the amount of impervious cover that's on this little lot here. It's almost entirely impervious today. So they're adding additional land by just adjusting this lot line to give it more area so that's a reduction of the impervious cover. So this is floodplain area. There's nothing that can really be built in here. This is just going to, if anything, it's going to help with flooding because it's allowing for more open land. So I don't think in both of these scenarios here, this area is basically useless land. I mean, more or less. I mean, you can't do anything in it because of the restrictions that exist.
Correct.
so I think what her question is, and Diane, I don't want to speak for you. But the two homes that are facing at the bottom on Spring Garden Street,
These two.
yeah, that one that you can see in this visual or this exhibit, it shows that the house is actually within the blue lines of the riparian buffer. And I guess the concern is if that was built, how can we assure that there will be no other homes built in any other portion of that? With the understanding that those two homes, you can see that one is further back and one is right at the street.
Yeah, I see that.
That's correct. Thank you. That's my concern.
Well, whoever, if somebody wanted to do that, we'd be in this very same process again. Somebody would have to come back, ask to subdivide the lot, then they'd have to go through land development. I don't, if you're asking, is there some regulation or ordinance in the township that would prohibit it? I don't think so. Refer to the solicitor, but we'd be in the same situation.
Our engineer would like to talk about it.
As please state your name for the record. please.
Ed Brown, Gilmore and Associates.
Thank you.
Building in the floodplain is extremely difficult. There is an entire ordinance section in our code for what is allowable in the floodplain. And they would have to get granted approval to build anything in the floodplain. And in that area, immediately to the right of the proposed dwelling is currently steep slopes, which are protected natural resource in our ordinance, and they can only disturb a certain amount, certain percentage. So they wouldn't be able to build anything in that area.
Even a better answer.
Thank you.
So my name is Mimi Gleason. I'm the township manager. Ed, do you know if they've updated the flood maps, or Jamie, they've updated the boundaries of the floodplain in many areas? Have the blue lines that are shown there, are they newer by any chance, do you think, or have they been in place for?
They did do enough.
2016 is the last mapping, so they
So
could
they may
possibly
have
have
been-
changed.
These may not have been the boundaries of the floodplain when those two houses were built in 2006. That might be the explanation of why they were permitted to be built then, and it could not happen now or going forward.
Just wanted to ensure somebody's. Are there any additional comments? Diane, is that still you? Or did you forget to put your hand down?
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
No worries, no worries.
Thank you.
No
Thanks for
worries.
the answers.
Any additional questions from the public? Over to you.
Anything else?
That's it. That's it for us. Thank you for your time. Sorry, this was kind of confusing. I feel like I should have done a better job clarifying off at the beginning.
The board has 45 days in which to render a decision, and we'll consider the record closed at this point. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Next up is the authorization to advertise. Nope, next up is the public hearing to consider ordinance establishing a property maintenance code. I'm going to turn that back over to our solicitor.
There is a memorandum in your packet that deals with this issue. This is a proposed ordinance that would adopt the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code with certain amendments as the Township Property Maintenance Code. This ordinance has been duly advertised. It's been reviewed by township staff and recommended for approval. And as the memo indicates, will be very helpful in terms of keeping the township looking neat and tidy.
Just wanted to confirm, what we have before us is the memorandum that was included in our board packet, also available online. I just wanted to ensure that there was proper notification of this, of the advertisement of the proposed ordinance.
Yes, it was duly advertised.
Okay, I just wanted to state it for the record. So at the request, professional consultants and staff have prepared a property maintenance code, which is a tool used by government to improve the conditions of property that have fallen in disrepair Again, we advertised this at our last meeting. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the adoption and the establishment of a property maintenance code for Lower Gwinnett Township?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you all so much. Next up is just general business and a discussion about the next steps for our proposed cell towers. We had a public hearing, a public meeting, not a public hearing. We had a public meeting on July 11th. For all individuals or residents who were living within a large boundary around where the proposed cell phone towers would be, were invited to attend and hear a presentation by Rise Up Cellular, I believe. They gave us information around what they were proposing, the understanding of who the carriers were that were interested, where the cell towers would be, our existing coverage maps, and what that would look like if the cell towers were actually placed. So there's a lot of things to consider, and we're still hearing from residents. We appreciate that residents are still reaching out, and I would want them to continue to reach out. There's been some outreach as far as questions around what this process looks like. And I'll go into that, I guess, a little bit, but I wanted to give Supervisor Tursky an opportunity to speak if you so choose.
I have to recuse myself from any consideration of any relationship between the township and Rise Up. Rise Up is represented by other lawyers at my law firm, and accordingly, I won't be involved in any deliberation, negotiation, voting, or consideration of a relationship with Rise Up.
Very well. So as we're looking to kind of manage what needs to happen next, the proposed locations and hearing from residents about them, we have asked our staff to reach out and see if there's any possibility for other locations to be determined or to be, I guess, acceptable. And they would not be necessarily on township property or municipal property. Specifically, the tower that would be on near the Township Administration Building. We're looking to see if there's a property owner, Beacon Properties, if they would consider a tower on their property. We're still awaiting a response, but as we're kind of going through that process, the next step would be to have our solicitor work through what a lease would look like. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to authorize our solicitor to move forward in developing a lease. Is there any question or conversation from the board and or the public? Seeing none. So we have before us a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So with that, our solicitor would go forth and work on the development of a lease. We will still be updating you as we go through this process. Information still is on the website as it relates to the presentation that happened on July 11th. If there is any outstanding questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to the supervisors. Again, we're trying to address this, the cell issue in a multitude of ways, and we're trying to get more information about the other potential locations, as well as shifting existing antennas to see if it provides us a little bit more of a coverage. So we'll be updating you as we have additional information. With that, unless anyone else has any questions. Next up is the mid-year review of the 2023 budget. It's going to be a presentation by our finance director. I'm going to turn it over to Melinda.
counting at 8:30. Melinda Haldeman, Finance Director, hello, Gwyneth. 30th, we tied in everything, reconciled everything, and I reviewed the budget lines. I did give you guys reports on both the revenues and on the expenses. I tried to go over all of the revenues and listed them all out and listed any that were over, and I gave you the outlay of that. Basically, for revenues, everything seems to be trending on point. There's no major swings other than interest income is higher across all of the funds and the budgeted amount, just because the Fed has raised the interest rate. So that's just, that's good for us because we don't have any debt. But so those are all higher. Also, the business privilege tax, that was over budget, the revenue by 55,000, 21,000 of that was from previous years that came through this year. Okay. Most of that usually comes in by April or May, so we're still going to have some trickling in of that revenue, so it will still be over budget, but I'm not quite sure by how much. 2022 and 2021 were hard for me to kind of gauge by the way everything was reported, so I think we'll know more in September about where we're seeing with that. On the expenses side, so what I did on the expenses, since we have so many categories, I kind of only listed out the ones that were 50% or over budget, because we're at June. That would kind of give you an idea of where we stood. Although everything doesn't kind of come in 1/12 every single month, there's some variances. So I looked at what was over budget by 100% or more. Basically, the only things that are trending, the expenses for professional services were much higher than budgeted. But that's because we had hired consultants to come in when the finance director vacated the position here. So they were coming in and they brought everything up to date, and then they kept it up to date till they could get a new finance director and train me. So hopefully now that will be trailing off because I need them left, but I'm kind of getting up to speed on that. And then I had mentioned last month with some traffic signals and some repairs that we had on that. But other than that, I don't think there's anything major that has listed out. I didn't know if you had any questions.
You said the business privilege tax. There was like an increase of 21% or 21,000 that we didn't anticipate, or there was an influx, or was there? I just want to make sure I'm understood.
Taxes that were delinquent in prior years.
And so that's what I was going to say. Were you able to collect them, or was there any outside entity that had any involvement? It was through Berkheimer. Okay. Okay.
I had a question. What exactly, and maybe this is for Mimi also, does the open space account cover? Budget, I should say.
That's a good question, Tessie, and something we should spend more time on when we're working on the budget for 2024. So there's nothing in the 2023 budget, I don't think, that's coming out of the open space fund. So it's a capital fund. It's a savings account, basically. And we don't have any capital projects planned for 2023 that involve the acquisition of open space, which is typically what an open space fund is for. We have a lot of funds here. So it's something Melinda and I should both see. We're like, it would be nice maybe to have some fewer funds and an understanding of what those funds are for. There's money, there's several million dollars in the open space fund. So it's, I think that was being built up in order to acquire land for the public works facility. But you don't need that in a separate fund. You could have that in the capital reserve fund unless the board likes to see it. And there's also nothing wrong with having more funds. Just it would help if we all had an understanding of what each fund is for. And then even within that, some of the fund balances are kind of spoken for this projects. We and Melinda and I want to get some more information together for you so that we're showing that to all of you to make sure you still agree that's what the plan is. And do we want to leave it as divided as it is, or maybe do a little consolidation while still showing some of the projects, just to there's not so many different funds and so much to remember.
And it's really nice to have fresh eyes on
Right,
these,
exactly.
because from one year to the next, I forget what each of those funds is for, but it just caught my eye because somebody on the EAC had asked me about the open space fund. And I was sure we had one, but I wasn't sure exactly what we were setting money aside for this year. But open space to me indicates that we want to preserve open land, not buy land for a building. But thank you for that answer.
Anything else?
No, just thank you for those summaries and like the bullet points and calling out different things in color. I think it was just really helpful for me as I was going through it. So thank you for doing that.
For me to review too also when I see that.
It was very helpful.
And even defining like what you're showing us and what it means, the parentheses versus the red versus, I appreciate all of that and defining.
You're not an accountant.
Mhm. I appreciate all of that. I don't think that there are any additional questions, or are there any questions from the public? Nope. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up is the authorization for issuance of an RFP for the extra architectural services for a new public works facility. We have a memo that was included in our managers or board report. It was also available online and kind of goes through some of the steps that were taken last year in 2002 as it related to planning for a public works building and the establishment of a public works strategic plan, as well as the award of RCAP money that we received as it relates to the development of a new facility. I think we're at the step now, and our staff is indicating to us that what we need to do is to actually go through the RFP process for our architectural services to establish the new public works facility. It's outlined as far as what I guess the additional detailed analysis that's needed beyond what was presented to us in 2002. So staff, if we approve it, and this would be issued in early August, staff would review and rank the proposal with the goal of presenting their top candidates to the board in time for consideration in our September meeting. So this is just for us to authorize the RFP and to allow staff to actually review and rank and present to us the top candidates for an architectural survey or architectural services for public works. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from anyone online or the public in general? The public in this room. With that, I would like to make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
And I
does.
just wanted to thank Al Comley officially for the record. He has been a huge help in thinking through this. So as I think everybody in here knows, he's our fire marshal and an architect. So where this started, like as a confused mess at 30,000 feet, he's helped us figure out and kind of identify we call it a feasibility study and a needs assessment and the information that we should include in the RFP. And he's going to be part of the team that would help vet the candidates that submit.
We thank you, Al, for all of your talents that you bring to the township. Next up is the authorization to advertise bid for the paving of Penn Ambler parking lot. We have a letter included in our manager's report, or I'm sorry, our board report, as well as online from our engineer outlining request for authorization to advertise the bid for Penn Ambler improvements. They consist of the reconstruction of the existing parking lot in accordance with PA and DEP approved capping plan. Upon approval of the request for authorization to advertise, it's anticipated that the bids would go in early August and the bid opening for the project will be held in early September with consideration for the award at our September 12th Board of Supervisors meeting. Mr. Brown, Ed Brown from Gilmore and Associates is before us tonight. If there are any questions from the board. Any questions from the public? There is, I think, a 3-page outline of the project, the work performed last period, the work that will be performed, all is included for reference. With that, I would like to make a motion to authorize the advertisement of a bid for paving a Penn Ambler parking lot. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion does carry. Thank you so much, Ed. Next up is a review of the township's engineer report. That was included in our board packet. I'm sorry, I think I included.
Yeah.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. This is overall as it relates to Gilmore and Associates in totality. Are there any questions about the work that has been performed currently or that has been performed within the last period by our engineer? And Ed is available to answer any questions in Jim's absence. No? Okay. Are there any questions from the public? Thank you guys so much. Next up is the review of the traffic engineer's report. The traffic engineer's report is presented in not a chart, but it goes over the design projects and it talks about the different projects that the traffic engineer currently is working on. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
I do have one question, I'm sorry. Do we have any sense of the timing on the removal of that island on McKean Road across from the Y?
Sort of. I talked with Beacon's traffic engineer as recent as this past Friday afternoon. They had talked with the contractor hired by Beacon. They indicated that they received authorization from Beacon at the beginning of last week to proceed with that work. The contractor has a concrete subcontractor that'll do that work, so they were just waiting to hear back on the date they expected to get out there, but they expect it to be very soon.
And so it'll get removed and then it'll have to be repaved, I assume?
Yeah, we'll have to
Blacktopped and striped.
blacktop it and replace the pavement markings
Okay.
that were there previously.
Thank you.
I have one question as well.
Sure.
It's actually two. Did they start the Dagger Road pedestrian? I know it was supposed to start yesterday. I didn't see anything, but I guess it might be underground, so I was just making sure pedestrian crossway for. Dagger
Yeah, I
Road.
just drove through there today. They were to begin on some of the trenching and underground work this week, sometime this week. They
Okay.
haven't been out there yet, but hopefully they'll stick to the schedule that they gave us last week and we'll see some action.
Okay, so it's still estimated
starting
to be
this week.
completed at the end of August.
Yes.
Okay. And then Gypsy Hill Road, I know, is there any updates on like, I guess, the site distance and things that we were going to be doing on Gypsy Hill Road?
Yeah, PennDOT put together a plan. I think we presented back in at a May or June board meeting. They still plan to move forward with that work likely this fall.
Okay.
To do the signs and pavement markings associated with the bridge
Okay.
and the curves out there and those things.
So, but in the fall?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Anyone online? Is there anything that you guys wanted to, I say you guys, Chad, is there anything that you wanted to share or highlight to the board?
No, I don't think so. This report was as of last Thursday afternoon. So as we get more updates on schedules, we feed those to Jamie so she can keep the township construction corner page on the website up to date.
Okay. And Ed, was there anything that you wanted to highlight?
Well, I think this is kind of listed further down, but the road program paving wrapped up yesterday. They still need to adjust manholes for the second phase of the road program, the ultra thin friction course.
Mhm.
They got the manhole rim adjustment rings. And they plan to do that work hopefully next week. So then we can reach out to AMS so they can get in to do their work with the goal to be completed by the end of August.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both. Next up, in our board packet, I keep wanting to call it manager's report, I'm sorry. Is our invoices, has everyone had a chance to review the invoices?
Yes.
Are there any concerns, comments, questions? Are there any questions, comments from the public? That I'd like to make a motion to approve our invoice history. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Next up is the approval of the minutes for June 27th, 2023 meeting. First, has everyone gotten an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Are there any questions, concerns, anything to add? I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 2023 public meeting. Has everyone gotten a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Are there any questions, concerns, additions? I'd like to make a motion to approve the July 11th, 2023 minutes. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is any questions about the volunteer commission meeting highlights. Again, this highlighted all of the meetings that have occurred since our last meeting. It is included in our board packet. Are there any questions from anyone?
This isn't a question, just a comment, that at our next board meeting, at our September board meeting, we will, our engineers will be presenting a plan, a draft master plan for updating and renovating our parks to the Board of Supervisors. We got a lot of positive feedback from the public at our Parks and Rec meeting, but it's just another opportunity for the public to come out and take a look at the plans and provide any comment before the board considers those plans. But I'm really excited for everybody to see them, so.
Thank you so much. Next up is staff updates on activities and projects. And it's going to turn it over to Jamie Warman to talk about the Wissahickon Creek watershed.
The Wissahickon Watershed Partnership, at our meeting last Thursday, there was discussion about what the structure of this group is going to look like when we get into the implementation phase of the water quality improvement plan. So they're kind of struggling with creating an entity that's able to receive funding through grants. So when they finally have the approved list of projects and they go in for a project, they need to have some type of structure that will allow them to receive funds to help offset the cost to the municipalities. So they are asking that the township solicitor review 3 options that they came up with and provide feedback to the group as a whole. And they're going to kind of take everybody's comments, and then they're going to come back when we meet probably in September or October and discuss, what the majority of the group wants the structure to look like moving forward. So they're just at this point looking for some feedback. They're going to be submitting revisions, hopefully to DEP, to their comment letters next month. And they're thinking that they need to have a good idea of what the structure is going to look like, so that the regulators understand, this is how we plan on implementing these projects. So
Is Philadelphia in or out? Regardless of the structure? I know there was talk earlier that Philadelphia had concerns about being part of any formal structure.
they haven't mentioned that. They've never discussed that at the meeting, so I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought maybe Mark raised it at some point a while back, but okay, that's great.
I'm not aware.
Do we need to authorize Neil to do that review or?
Well, Neil kind of provided a lot of the input on what the structure will look like. So, but I did forward Neil, they've invited the solicitors from each municipality to join in, and they're holding 2 Zoom meetings tomorrow and Friday just to kind of open it up in case solicitors have any questions. Because the attorney for the group is an environmental attorney. They're not a municipal solicitor. So they need some guidance as to, you know, what the process has to look like from a municipal standpoint. So they've invited the attorneys to sit in Thursday and Friday. Being that Neil has provided most of the information, I don't know what he'll get out of that, but I'll leave that up to him.
So is what they're looking for, is the Watershed Partnership looking from us, one of these three options we prefer, if we have a preference? And they're just looking, are they looking for us to weigh in, or they just want us to be aware that these are the structural options and hear if we have any strong opposition?
I think they want just you to weigh in. Like, I don't think it's necessarily deciding which one you prefer, but even if you have questions about the ones that were identified in the memo that Drew put together, kind of explaining them, I think they're just at this point, is there any that you're like, absolutely not? Or if you have questions like, how does something like this work? If, you know, if they form this organization, what role will the municipality have in it? Just like general questions that you might have.
I guess I want to ask Neil, is there any benefit to a municipal authority? And is there one that stands out as being more equitable as it relates to the 13 different municipalities that are potentially going to be a part of this?
Actually had occasion to do a list of the pros and cons
Oh.
of each potential option.
Oh, okay. Oh, you
You
have
wanna
copies for
pass?
everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was sharing. My
Oh, you did? Okay.
You got an
All right,
advance,
you can pass
you got an
one too.
advance copy.
So the one that the managing board, the partnership board seemed to be most interested in because of its flexibility was the joint venture. I know there was some preference expressed by at least one municipality for an authority, although they didn't say why, at least not to me. I think most municipalities recognize that probably a 501c4 may not be the best option because of IRS involvement and other documentation issues. And there's even been some talk, I think, in Congress about possibly doing away with the 501c4. So it comes down really to authority or joint venture. There are pros and cons for both.
A lot of cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer. Is there, I'm not suggesting this is the proper way to proceed, but we proceed as is right now and just continue to do it in this informal consortium way? What would be the problem?
They can't get grant money.
Yeah, they can't get grant
That's the
money
only problem.
We'd have
unless
to go
there's some
indi-
kind of legal
We'd have to
structure.
go individually with every municipality to pursue.
That's right.
Yeah, this came to light because the Watershed Partnership went in, they identified a list of projects and they went in, the county, Drew submitted that to the county and they were awarded $1.5 million in ARPA funding, the county ARPA. And when they went to figure out how they were going, how this money would transfer to this entity, this is when this issue kind of came up because we didn't really have any type of structure. So now it's going to go to each municipality as like a sub-recipient of the ARPA funding. And they kind of didn't like the way that structure was set. And they're thinking that if this is an issue with this, it's going to be an issue in the future.
So is there any concern that establishing any of these entities would, I don't know, dissuade one or more of the municipalities from wanting to be a part of it?
Entirely possible.
You kind of almost have to work it like city council, where you keep rotating who's the chair and who's on the board, so that no one municipality has significant sway or authority over the group.
Well said.
Has there been anyone, I guess this is for you, Jamie, that has indicated that they do not want to be a part of any entity?
No, everybody, everybody seems to be on board. We don't hear much from Cheltenham, but they are still involved, even though they have very small amount of the watershed in their municipality. But I haven't gotten any type of indication of that.
And Philadelphia is still part of it?
Mhm.
Okay. So is our statement back to them need to be concrete, or can you take anecdotally what we've said here? Do you need something written? Do you need Neil to write something up?
I mean,
I just
would you
want to
think
make,
we'll have more feedback or more information after the two meetings?
Yeah,
And have a
maybe
better
then.
sense maybe for our next board meeting to.
like, when are they looking to know this by, I guess? is
Well,
my
I
question.
think they're looking for comment or just comments back. They had said about 3 weeks from when they gave us, from when we met. So,
Are we
well,
at
actually from when they issued, when he
It
put
says
this,
August
no,
10th.
yeah, what does it say? August 10th?
August
Yeah,
10th.
he had it in the memo, I thought.
So it'll be before our next meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can, I mean, you can informally,
So would you like the board members to indicate to you individually, since we don't?
yeah,
need to
that's
vote on
fine.
anything
Yeah,
right
there's
now?
no vote to take, so
Okay.
sure.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Sure.
Next up is staff update regarding our 2023 paving program. And that was it? We're just done? Ed tried to combine them. Ed tried to do a little combination. I see.
Like
Okay.
the efficiency.
All right, now we're on to
Yeah, like-
supervisor comments.
I do have just one update.
Oh.
I promised Sandy I would pass along. Tomorrow night is the last concert of the summer as summer races along. And the
Wow.
program's gone well this year. We've averaged over 100 people at each concert.
Come out and enjoy. So tomorrow night at 7 PM at Oxford Park, the last concert for the summer, for this summer. Supervisor comments, Tessie?
Just to welcome our new officer and thanks to Paul for excellent hiring and that's all. I wish him the best and we're glad to have him.
What you need?
I echo what Tessie said. I welcome the new officer. Congratulations to those kids. It was pretty cool to hear their story. Thanks everybody for sticking it out for 2 hours. Enjoy summer.
Mike?
You know,
I just want to kind of echo the recognition of Sohan Kashav and Suri Shah. It's exceptional what they were able to do to ensure that they were all safe and got out of a fire in a very dangerous situation in their reaction time. So I just wanted to commend them again and what they were able to accomplish. I'd also want to congratulate Officer Sell and welcome in the Lower Gwinnett. I want to remind everybody that our Fall Fest is September 23rd. Please mark it on your calendars if you haven't already. And I know I said it at the beginning, but Sunday, July 30th, from 1 to 4, we're going to be at the Wireless Zone, our community response unit, giving out backpacks to youngsters getting ready to go back to school. With that, I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Bye.
Meeting adjourned. I mean, it was about his story.